Hello and welcome to the shop. One of my most requested videos, or one of my biggest questions that I always have, revolves around this idea of how I build my carvings. And so we're going to go through that today. So the very first object that I'm going to look at is my oil cruets. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so my cruets, they go through many different phases, okay? We're gonna focus on the carving piece today and kind of how we take a blank and build it up from there. It's gonna go really, really fast because we don't have a lot of time to do things. It goes slow for me, but the video will go fast for you. So first of all, I have my blank that's right here. And my blank just came off the wheel. It's in leather hard condition. When it gets done and when it gets ready to go in the kiln, it's going to look like this. So a couple of the features that I have for my cruets is that I have this carving on the front. It may be a carving that is representative. It may be a carving like this one that is design based. But they will all have sides that are gripper sides that you see right there. We'll show you how to put those gripper sides in and for pouring the oil. And then they all have the stamp on the bottom, or the plaque, I guess I should call it, on the bottom. When they get done, they have several different ways that they are fired, but most often what I do is I fire them with my Mediterranean glaze, which is a blue-green, an ocean blue-green like this, with the highlights of seafoam on the front. So those are the most popular ones, and so those are the ones that I use the most often. So the very first step before I do any kind of designing or anything like that, I have to divide up my space a little bit so I have them equal. What I use is a template like this that I've gotten off of the internet. Okay, so I made a copy of it on a piece of overhead, what do they call that, acetone or something like that, paper. And then I just went to Office Depot and had it laminated with a really, really good lamination that's not going to come off on the edges. So I paid a little bit extra for that. Still a lot cheaper than buying them commercially. And you're only going to use it for basically this one purpose, which is to divide up your space. So also on here, one thing you'll notice, I just had this metal container, which was basically from a plant stand. And I just have that on top of my turntable. So I'm able to turn that if I need to, and then this catches all of my shavings as I'm doing it. So it has a nice enough edge, a high enough edge. You'll see me take this with all the shavings on it and just sort of dump it into my bucket so I don't waste anything, and I have a great opportunity to reclaim all that clay as well when I get done. So I backed it up just a little bit so you can kind of see what's going on the bottom here. I just put this piece down. So again, this is my divider. So it has a bunch of dividing lines on it, as you can see better now with the white background. And I'm just going to put this one on the top. And what I'm going to do is take this triangle that I have, which is a 90-degree angle on the bottom, and I'm going to make some lines straight up and down in order to divide up my space. I know I'm going to need those gripper panels on the side, and a front and back is generally what I do in order to have my design area. So I'm going to take that all the way up. You see a little line on the top here that I have before I get to the area that the pouring piece is going to go into. So I do that intentionally because I like to have a good stop point on the top where all these are going to stop at the same spot all the way around. So I'm basically dividing it up into fourths. Now it doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes I divide it up into eighths and divide those fourths up right away. So this is the first stage, the first step that I do in producing an oil cruet. So I told you this was going to be fast, right? So we're already up to the point where I'm going to use this magical tool, the Surform tool. The Surform tool on the outside, start out right where one of the lines are at, and you bring it down. And what you're going to do is I look at the side and the profile as I'm doing this, so I start to bring it down in streaks like that. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of the excess weight off already, and a lot of that extra weight will come off, of course, with the carving. But this one, all I'm doing is I'm basically blending all of the lines together as I go down, and I'm creating a surface that's similar to wood. I like how my glaze works on that. I like how the uniformity comes together, and I like the detail that I get on the very bottom, where I can really predict how much I want that flare to come out at the bottom of my piece. Now I have decisions to make. Sometimes I make a decision if I'm going to do just two sides and leave the front and back completely rounded, or because this does flatten it out quite a bit, or I can do all the sides and make it into a four-sided piece. It's totally up to me. I think with this one, with the design that I have in mind for you guys today, I think I'm just going to do the two sides and get those done. So typically what I'll do is I'll generally go over the area like this, and I'm using B-mix clay, so it is a porcelain-like clay, so it does come off very nicely. It's a very creamy clay, so when it comes off, it's a very satisfying experience to take off some of this. So now that I have most of the excess weight off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make those cross-hatching lines on here like you saw on the finished one. And what that's going to serve as is kind of the gripper lines. So it gives it a natural feeling of grip. This one I have left a little bit of roundness to it, so you see that I'm giving it a round appearance from the bottom to the top. So flatten that side a bit like that, give it my textured area. We're ready to go on that side. All right, so now I'm up to making my decisions about what I'm going to do on the front and back. And one of the big things that I think people are most surprised about is this is absolutely intuitive on my part. I use very little tools in order to make my lines, I don't do any drawing or anything like that ahead of time. It all just is kind of going to come out as I start to put it on there. So one of the things I've been working with is this idea of kind of a fish motif with it. So I haven't really refined it yet, but you guys can come through it with me here today. Now I'm going to start out with a line that on one side of my central line, I'm going to bring that down, touch my edge on the outside, and bring that in. I'm going to do the same line on the other side. Now my eyes are watching as I'm going down to keep that symmetrical, and I want to cross that central line at the same point, and then I want to come down in the same manner. Okay? So there is the start of my fish design from there. I'm going to start a point right here, and I'm going to bring that line then down to create the tail on the bottom. So I'm going to start at a point right here. I'll bring that down, and some of these lines I'll use and some of them I won't use. But that doesn't matter. It's just a matter of putting these lines together. Okay? So I started at the bottom there, divide those lines up, start at the same point, see, going up right there, all the way down, and create that bottom part of the fish. Now, if there's any, you'll notice, and you probably noticed right there, that one of these lines is off just a little bit as far as the thickness goes. No worries. So what I do is just erase it like that, just push the tip of my tool into it, and then come out just a little further than I did right there, and right down to the point. There you go. And now it's corrected. So now what I have to do, so now I've abstractly kind of divided up, and I really have these tail part of my fish kind of at the bottom. And what I want to do is I want to start to divide up this area on the top. And so I'm going to do the very same thing, and I'm going to continue from these lines that I started right here and bring those lines on up in order to make the top part of the fish. So I'm going to flip it upside down. I'm going to take these and continue my lines to the top. So again, the central line was important with that because the central line is my cross point that keeps everything in the middle, and that really helps everything to stay aligned in the center. So if you're going to do designs like this that are vertical designs, make sure that you're using those cross points as a reference point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on this transition here from my design piece to the grip area on the outside. I'm just going to start at the top, and I'm going to draw a straight line that goes from that top to the bottom. Real easy to keep a nice straight line with these tools. Push that to the side, go to my other side, start at the same spot on the top, and again just pull that straight line coming down right to the bottom. Do the same thing on the other side. And what this does is it just gives me a nice definition between my design area and what the grip area is going to be. See that? So now my grip area on the outside, my design area on both sides, my rounded design area, as you can see, my grip area is a bit flatter because of the Sureflow tool. So as you will see, if you've seen my pieces live, you'll see that I go into that trough with my carving. And I do that intentionally because what I want to have happen is some of the glazes that I use are very runny. And I want those glazes to run from my carved area right here down into that trough and create lots of different fun colors inside of there. And definitely a darker area inside there. So two things happen when that occurs. You have carving areas that become lighter, and you have then that color running down into the trough, making that darker. You have a great 3D appearance through doing that. All right, and the next area around the outside is going to be this bottom right here. So we're going to get that bottom shape taken out to really expose that tail area a little bit more. I've taken the bottom part off, which exposed the tail. I've taken some outside off here into my gutter, which exposed the outside outline of the fish. And then I've also on the top here given it some lines, and I like these lines that turn into diamonds at the end. Can we see that? There we go. That turn into diamonds at the top, which exposes the top part of what's going to be the fish. So now it's about making some lines on the inside. So now on the inside of the fish, I've made some dots on the inside of the fish, and now it's going to be just me being an artist at this point. So there's my fish design. So the last thing I'm going to do is just take a damp sponge and just go lightly over top of the whole piece and just make sure all the little parts are off of it in order to get it ready to go into the kiln. Thanks for stopping by.